Hello, 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 everyone. It's Dr. Tamara Beckford, and welcome to the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. Alrighty, for those of you out there, I know you've all heard about the GLP-1s. Are you curious about it when it comes to weight loss? Are you trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm hearing all these things. I see you posting about it, Dr. Beckford. So what is this all about, right? And it's just like, I hear about muscles and GLP-1s and I need to be careful about my muscles. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. We have an expert here today, and I'm going to introduce you to her, and she's going to tell us all about why muscle matters while taking GLP-1. All right, let me tell you about my sister friend. All right, so this lovely doc, she's a graduate of Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. Then she did her residency in internal medicine at Jefferson Northeast in Philadelphia. So all my Philly massive, hello, hello, hello to all my Philly people. She's also double board certified, not only in internal medicine, but also obesity medicine. And she has a culinary coaching from Harvard Institute of Lifestyle Medicine. She is the CEO and founder of Monarch Weight Loss and Wellness in Arizona. And today, she's going to share with us her unique approach to preserving muscle loss and also to ensure to optimize your metabolic health while you are taking GLP-1s and how to make sure these GLP meds work for you. So it's all about the prevention and making sure that this works for you. Who am I talking about? Who's going to give us all this info today? The one and only Dr. Mona Sodhi. Go, Dr. Mona. Dr. Mona. Woo! Hello, Dr. Mona. How are you?
Good, Dr. Beckford. Thanks for having me on your show. What a delight and what a great introduction.
I am so excited to have you on. There are just so many people are asking and try to wonder, what is this all about? What's this whole thing? But before we give them the answer, let's get a time to get to know you, Dr. Mona. So tell us, why did you want to be a doctor in the first place? Give us a story.
Yeah, so that goes way back to my childhood. I had a lot of family members, not my parents, that were physicians. So I spent a lot of time shadowing them, seeing what they did and the help that they were able to deliver. And so
Mhm.
that was really the foundation for, my inspiration for wanting to get into medicine. And that was really it. It was just that inspiration to, serve a greater purpose and help
Mhm.
people. And it was my natural path. I never really diverted from that path from a young age. So it was pretty sold from the beginning for me.
Sold.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah.
Got this.
Yes.
I know what I'm going to do. All right. So you're
Yeah.
there and you got into medical school and you decide to do internal medicine. Were there
Correct.
any other points during that time that you were like, okay, well, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. Oh, no, I'll do this. Oh, no, I'll do that. Or were you just sold on internal medicine from the
Yeah.
beginning?
I was pretty much sold. I just loved the options that you had when you went into internal medicine, where you could
Mhm.
do cardiology, pulmonology. At
Mhm.
one point, I think I thought I was going into rheumatology because that also touches every organ system.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it was just the options available and touching all the organ systems that I really loved. And obesity medicine really does that too. It incorporates all of it. So it was kind of a natural transition for me.
Yeah. At what
Yeah.
point did you decide that, you know what, I wanted to get extra training and do
Yeah.
so with obesity medicine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've had three pregnancies, and
Mhm.
after each one, there's always that weight struggle, right? As a new
Yeah.
mom, getting back to your old body is what they say. And the first two pregnancies were fine.
Mhm.
I did what they told me to do. I had a
Mhm.
nutritionist. I ate what I had to eat. I exercised. I restricted to whatever degree I needed to, and I got back. My third pregnancy, it was a rodeo. Nothing was working anymore. And I was like,
Mm.
something is wrong. And around that time is when I discovered that obesity medicine was a board certified field. And I was like, there are millions of people like me that just
Mhm.
can't figure it out. And something worked in the past, doesn't work anymore. So like, what is there
Mhm.
to this equation that is missing? And so that's what obesity medicine was for me. It was that missing piece to why do some people maintain a weight naturally, and then other people, they seem to just follow the trajectory of their mothers, right, or their
Mhm.
fathers. And then some people, they just, they have obesity and they don't know why.
Right.
And what are those transition points in their life that lead to that, whether it's pregnancy, menopause, et cetera. So I just found the whole world of obesity medicine to be fascinating. And so that's
Mhm.
what made me pursue it, was my own personal struggle, but also
Mhm.
just a curiosity about what makes one person different than the other.
Mhm.
And it's not fair sometimes. It can feel like we're not on an even playing field. So I wanted to be that person to help
Mhm.
people say, hey, it's not your fault. This is a true disease of the body, and we can get ahead of it. So that was really my primary motivator.
Ah, I love it. Really taking away that shame that sometimes comes along with this
Yeah,
weight gain, knowing that this is not your fault. This is a disease, just like other diseases that affect our body. So now, you have pulled in and you're really immersed in the world of obesity medicine and being able to use that to help so many people out there. And one of the ways and the tools that's out there for helping are the GLPs.
right.
So those who are listening and they're wondering, I'm hearing so much about GLPs, but I don't really know what this is. And what is this? Can you just elaborate and just give them a little bit of idea of how these medications work?
Yeah. So GLP, or glucagon-like peptide, is a hormone in our body that we make naturally. And what it does in a nutshell is it makes us feel more full, it reduces our appetite, it reduces our cravings. But some of us don't have quite as much GLP as the next person, or their GLP might not be very effective. And
Mhm.
so when we give ourselves an exogenous amount of GLP through the medication, right, then we boost up our levels of GLP. And so then we actually feel what I would call a normal state. So you actually feel
Mhm.
fullness when you're supposed to. You don't feel cravings all day. You don't feel like just itching to get a snack like when you're on your drive home from work. All of those,
Mhm.
that food noise really goes to the wayside. And so that's the beauty of these medications that we've never really had in the history of obesity medicine, is that they are able to make you feel like a normal individual that has normal appetite regulation and fullness. So they're really a gift, I think, to the obesity medicine world.
What I love about how you describe that is that you said it brings you back to that normal phase. A lot of times when people are hearing about GLPs, they're thinking that is bringing you to an abnormal phase. Like, oh
Right.
no, this is, like you said, an exogenous, which basically is a medical term, meaning they're getting it like
Yeah.
additional outside
Right.
source. That's the medical term for the outside sources
Right.
of this medication, but it's doing something abnormal to your body. But what it really is just bringing you to that state where you're in the range of where you naturally would be if you
Yes.
had the right
Yes.
amount of this
Yes.
medicine or
Yeah.
this glucagon like peptide within the body, the
Yeah.
hormone. So
Now
I
you
love
can
that.
overdo it. I mean, you can really
Mhm.
go to an abnormal place, and that's why it's important to get it from someone who's responsibly prescribing it and monitoring. How are you feeling? Is your appetite completely gone? Like, if you think of your hunger on a scale of 0 to 10, is it a 0? Well, then we need to probably back off on your dose. You should still
Absolutely.
feel some hunger and some desire to eat. Otherwise, we're doing you a disservice, right? Eating
Mhm.
is cultural, eating is, emotional. Like, we still want to experience that.
Yeah.
But this kind of, when dosed appropriately, a GLP can help you just feel those sensations on a more regular, predictable basis, and rather than being kind of ravenous or grazing all day like many of my patients do.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's right, Dr. Alexa. She's out it. She's like responsibly prescribing. Absolutely. Now, here's the thing. When the medications are administered and the patients are taking these medicines, there are some things that they have to really be careful about. And some patients, they just hear, oh, GLPs, take it, and then I'm just going to lose weight. But it's more than just losing weight, right? So let's explain to those who are out there who are like, oh, what is all this about?
Yeah.
And explain why it's more than just losing weight, and then some of the important factors that we need to keep in mind when you are taking the GLP ones.
Right. So this comes back to the fact that our weight is just the historic measurement that we have used.
Mhm,
The pounds on the scale don't matter that much to me. They
mhm,
do, from the 30,000-foot view, yes, your weight on the scale does matter. BMI matters to an extent, but what I care about more is the body composition of my
mhm,
patients. So body composition includes your fat, your muscle, you're made of minerals and water. What does it break down to? And if you're on a GLP, you could potentially lose more muscle than if you're not paying attention to it.
mhm,
Naturally, you will lose a little bit of muscle and some fat, but we want to minimize the amount of muscle that you're losing.
mhm,
And so we need muscle, right? Muscle is our skeletal muscle mass is what I'm talking about when I talk about body composition. That is metabolically active. So when you're sleeping, when you're using your muscle, it's
mhm.
burning calories, right? It's metabolically active. It's a living, breathing organ system. And so we
Absolutely.
want to optimize that, right? So
Mhm,
when we optimize the amount of muscle we have, we raise our basal metabolic rate so that at baseline, we are just more active or burning more calories, right? Is the simplest way of saying that.
mhm,
Uh, and there are other benefits too. Like it helps with maintaining your weight. So once you've achieved your weight, if you've got a good amount of muscle mass, you're more likely to maintain that weight. Versus, let's say you're on a GLP, you lose all this weight, but a good chunk of it is muscle, and then you stop for some reason, you stop taking the GLP, you're more likely to gain it back, right?
mhm,
So it's like you want to build up your reserve of muscle mass, strategically, right? When you're on a
mhm,
GLP, when you know you're hitting menopause soon, that's another time I would recommend focusing on the muscle mass because we lose it. We are, when we're young, we're in high school, we're in college, we're in our 20s, we can build muscle and we keep it and it stays there. But once we hit 30, it starts to decline, right? And so
mhm,
if we're not counteracting that with lifting weights, prioritizing protein, it's going to go away, right? And we
mhm,
don't want sarcopenia, right? That's when we lose too much muscle mass.
mhm.
So starting in your 30s, it's critical that you start thinking about lifting weights and prioritizing protein because it starts then and then we hit menopause, right? Maybe sometime in our 40s or 50s.
Mhm.
And we lose estrogen, and estrogen is important in maintaining your muscle mass. And
Absolutely.
so it's critical at that point as well that we have the reserve of the muscle so we can afford to lose a little bit, right? If
Yeah,
you've
the
got very
little
little
naturally
reserve,
that we would
exactly,
lose just
exactly.
going through life.
Yeah. So muscle is so important, but your question was more about the GLPs. And I think because we know with the GLP, sure, if you give someone a GLP, they're going to lose weight. But if you can be strategic about making sure that most of that weight loss is fat loss and not
Mhm.
muscle loss, you're winning. And you're
Absolutely.
more likely to reduce your dose and maybe come off, right? There's
Mhm.
never a guarantee of that, but you're more likely to be in that position. And you want that muscle mass, right? You want muscle mass for so many reasons, not just your
Mhm.
metabolism. I mean, your longevity, your ability to, move your joints, lift your grandkids, all of those things, prevent,
Yes.
osteoporosis. We didn't even get into that, right? So
Mhm.
muscle is so important. And I'm so glad that, in 2024, 2025, now we're really talking about it and we're really telling people, hey, look at how much muscle you have. Don't just look at your weight. That's not the only parameter that matters here.
Mhm.
So what I do in my practice is I have an in-body body composition scale, which is great because I can show people, hey, this is how much muscle you're starting with, and this is our goal up here, and this
Mhm.
is how much fat you're starting with, and we want that to go down, so they can actually see it. Because traditionally, you've just got the scale in your,
Mhm.
your bathroom scale, and it may not go down all the time, right? But if you're
Right.
building muscle, you could
That's
say,
what.
okay, well, my weight maybe stayed the same, but my muscle went up, and I consider that a win. I cheer my patients on when that happens. Um,
Absolutely.
so the more data, the better, I think, when it comes to
Mhm.
our body composition. And if you can afford a body composition scale at home, great. If you have somebody locally that'll do it for you, that's fantastic. But monitor it. If you're going to be on
Mhm.
a GP, have some idea of where you're starting and where it's taking you. I think that could be really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's important, as we're saying, to emphasize that while you are taking the medication and you are losing weight, as it helps to, reduce the causes of what made you gain the weight in the first place, we want to make sure that you're losing it in proportion, in the right proportions, where you're losing the fat but not too much of the muscle, because the muscle mass of your body is important for structural function, for your metabolic function in the first place. Because
Yeah.
for those who's noticed that you sit down, you look at a Snicker bar, you didn't even eat it, you might have taken just a little bit of a sniff and then you gain 5 pounds. Well, part of it could be due to the fact that your metabolism is very low. Now, one of the things about building muscles is that it helps that basal, which is your baseline metabolic rate. That's literally where you're sitting down and your body is burning its calories. So when you look at the Snicker bar is not looking back at you. So you can actually burn the calories. So muscles help that at baseline. The muscles also, it helps with not just the body, the structural function, but also in reducing the likelihood of fractures as we get older. That's what we talk about,
100%.
and also it's important not to lose all of that while you are on your medication. So
Yeah.
what are some things? So the people are like, okay, that's great, Dr. Beckford and Dr. Mona. I shouldn't lose weight, but how do I keep my muscles? Okay, no problem. Well, we're going to answer that right now, right?
Yeah, and this is something I talk about all day, every day. So, start with your protein intake. Now, there are fancy equations you can do. Um, Generally, 1.5 times your body weight in kilograms
Yeah.
is what I would say. And for
Mhm.
many people, an ideal body weight is usually where we start, not where you're at now. So let's say you're 300 pounds, you may want to calculate what's called your ideal body weight, which is
Mhm.
actually based off of your height.
Right.
We don't need to get into all the equations, but
No.
essentially, for a lot of people, it's
Mhm.
100 grams of protein a day. That's a great place to aim for. Now, you might be
Mhm.
eating 40 or 50. Don't go to 100 grams. Go to 50, go to 60, go to 70, week by week, because you're
Yes.
going to
So
get constipated.
gradually.
Exactly. Gradually, increase your water, right? Because protein can make you a little bit constipated. So you want to be mindful of that. So
Right.
water and fiber along with the protein. But 100 grams a day is a great goal for many people.
Mhm.
That's not blanket advice, but it's a great place to start as an aspirational goal. And breaking that up into 3 or 4 meals a day, and
Mhm.
really eating that protein first, having it be the center of your plate, and then adding your veggies, your healthy carbs, and then your fat. But make sure that with every meal you sit down for, you're thinking about, okay, well, how much protein is in here? Is it enough? That's
Mhm.
usually where people need to sit and reevaluate. They're getting a little piece of salmon, and it's maybe 2 ounces. That's got maybe 15 grams of protein, double that,
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
get your protein in there. So protein is one piece of the equation for maintaining and building muscle mass, and then strength training, resistance training. That is the other piece that I have to convince people. You can start with body weight. So body
Mhm.
weight resistance training could look like holding a plank, doing a wall squat, right? Really
Mhm.
basic things that you can do without any equipment. And that's why I love those things. Start there. And then when you feel comfortable, start with some hand weights, little 5 pound
Mhm.
dumbbells. That's fine. And then increase. That's the
Right.
key is increasing. I tell many of my patients, the last rep you do, it should be a little bit of a struggle, because
Mhm.
the way we build muscle is actually by making micro tears, and that's that struggle of getting that last rep in. And so you don't want to be lifting weights and watching TV. That probably means it's a little bit too easy for you. Like, your
Mhm.
mind should be in it. Like, you should be thinking about that muscle. Where is it in your body? How hard is it working? Like,
Mhm.
really putting your mind into it, lifting to that point of muscle fatigue, right? Because we're
Right.
breaking it down so we can build it up. And that's what I recommend. It's very tried and true advice.
Mhm.
Bodybuilders have been doing this for a long time. We're just doing it in a more moderate way
Mhm.
when we're taking GLPs. But protein plus resistance training, that's the equation. I mean, if you can do those two things, you're setting yourself up for a lot of success.
Love it. Love it. So the resistance training, as we're saying, we're using that as a way to build and maintain the muscles,
Yeah.
and keeping mindful of our eating habits to make sure that we have a protein with the meals as best as we can. And aiming for 100 grams of protein throughout the day. And that could be broken up into different meals. Now, there's also this factor about like what to eat first. Now, a lot of times when we let that hunger get to that ravenous state, the first thing that we're going after is the carbs, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
need this.
yeah,
So, but you're
yeah,
saying that also when we think about how we structure our plates,
yeah,
you want to structure it with the at least 30 to 40 grams of the protein and
yeah.
your vegetables and your carbs. So, which one should we go after first? Which one should we go after first?
I'm not particular about what goes into your mouth first because
Mhm,
the reality is when you're on a GLP, you're getting more full. And
mhm,
so if it's hard for you to get in the protein, I would recommend getting it in first before you're too full.
mhm,
But for other people, great, have your veggies first. Let that marinate. That's fine.
mhm.
If you have more room in your stomach, physically and mentally, right? That's fine.
Right.
But I'm not too concerned about the order in which things go into your body, as much as
Mhm,
that you're eating a protein, a fat, and a carbohydrate, and that can get into, if you're having, let's say, a sweet potato, it's better to have that sweet potato combined with a protein and a fat
mhm.
so that we don't have a big glucose spike, right?
Right.
Um, and having muscle actually helps regulate your blood sugar too. It helps
Mhm.
bring down insulin resistance. So, but in terms of how you eat your meal, I'm not concerned about what you take a bite of first. I mean, I think you should enjoy it. It's a plate of food. Like I'm a big fan of Thanksgiving meals and putting a little bit of everything on my
On the
fork and
plate.
eating it that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's more just when you're setting your plate up, make sure that piece of protein is there, and that you've accounted for it, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. But that's usually the priority I have for my patients.
Absolutely. Now there are some people that they're noting that, you know what, um, I work a hectic job. Like for example, I'm in the ER. I went to work last night and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I brought my 32 ounces of water and I still brought some home, right? So
yeah,
when you're in situations like that where it's very busy and you're hectic, but you want to ensure that you are still getting the protein that you
right.
need throughout the day. Some people move towards supplements and shakes. What are your thoughts? Is that okay? Like in my protein
Yeah,
shakes, okay?
it's okay. I know that again, the social media tends to like vilify all these products and they're processed and they're this and they're that. But at the end of the day, if you treat them like a supplement, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a supplement like a protein powder to get in all of your protein for the day, you're not doing anything wrong. But that being said, I do prefer whole foods over processed supplements because that's
Absolutely.
typically what they are, is something processed. If you look at the back of a protein shake, it's probably got 10 to 20 ingredients on there and you can't pronounce the name. That tells you it's probably processed. Okay. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you can never have it. It just means that shouldn't be your main source of protein all the time.
Absolutely.
But in your case, like working in the ER, you don't get negative points for bringing in, a protein shake. That's okay. I just had this conversation with a patient the other day talking about how she has the protein shake every day, the, bottled, prepackaged one. And I said, what about if you made the protein shake in the blender in the morning, meaning you just got 100% whey powder, put that in, and then you put a whole food in, like a banana, or you put some Greek yogurt in to thicken it up, some chia seeds. So that way you're adding some nutrients in there. And it's not just this processed thing with stabilizers in it. It's actually a little bit more wholesome. So if
Mm-hmm.
you have the time to do that, I prefer that over a pre-bottled thing, but I get it. For convenience purposes, if
Mm-hmm.
you just need to keep a case of protein shakes by your desk for, you need it in a pinch, that's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
But of course, read the ingredients, see, what's understandable to you. That's probably the product that you want
The
to get.
better. What can I
Yeah.
pronounce?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Love it, love it,
Totally.
love it. Now, here's the other thing, too. So, in addition to, of course, trying to ensure that we can keep our muscle mass, one of the things that you're also very great at is ensuring that patients know how to optimize their health, their metabolic health while on these GLPs. So, what are some ways that you are using to really clarify and to ensure that your patients recognize how to optimize their health while they're using these GLPs?
Yeah. So at the core, the protein, it's complex carbohydrates. So really focusing on something like avoiding like the high starch vegetables whenever possible. So or high glucose fruits like mangoes, right? That
Mhm.
are mostly glucose or sugar. They're going to spike your blood sugar, spike
Mhm.
your insulin, as
Mhm.
opposed to, let's say, a quinoa or a brown rice that's got
Mhm.
some fiber in it that's not as likely to do that.
Mhm.
So it's picking the right carbohydrates, filling
Mhm.
your plate with that protein, still having some healthy fats, right? Some olive oil, some avocado, those are
Mhm.
great sources. So nutrition is definitely the core of what we do, but also metabolic health is, getting your strength training in, taking days to recover. Believe it or not, I get some people that they're addicted to things like running. They do
Mhm.
marathons and they cannot stop it. They cannot stop running. And so I have to bargain with them that they need to do yoga or they need to do something else on one day a
Mhm.
week, to
Yes,
just relax their body, and allow it time
to
to
recover.
recover. Right. Most exercise is good stress, but sometimes we can overdo it. So
Mhm.
recognizing that can be immensely helpful. And then focusing on things that reduce your stress, but also move your body. So a great example would be zone two. So if you basically take 220 minus your age and then
Mhm.
multiply that by zero point 0.6. So 60% of that is your zone two target heart rate.
Mhm.
Doing that most days of the week for 20, 30 minutes at least is great
Mhm.
for your overall health. So that's another thing that's easy to do. You can do it with your kids if you want. You can walk your dog, and get that kind of walk in. But you don't have to be doing HIIT. You don't have to be doing marathons
Mhm.
to get results and improve your metabolic health. It's really these simple things like walking. Taking care of your mental health is another thing that we talk about a
Mhm.
lot, because the stress in our mind does trickle into our body.
It's our
It's not
body,
just living up
absolutely.
there. We could
Mhm.
feel it, right? Like if I'm stressed, I feel it in my
Mhm.
traps.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so it's just so important to get a handle of that and recognize what are the things that are self-care to me. Is it, talking to a friend? Is it going for a walk? Is it
Mhm.
getting a therapist, right? Everybody has their unique needs, and recognizing when you need that and building it into your week is huge, because most people, especially women, especially mothers, are going to ignore themselves, put themselves last. So I
Yes.
talk a lot to my patients about, hey, when is your actual self-care time? I want to see
Mhm.
it in your calendar.
Yes.
I don't want you to just tell me you're going to do it. I want to see it there. So those are some of the things that I incorporate from a lifestyle perspective, and it all comes together to improve our metabolic health.
Absolutely, absolutely. So keeping in mind not only the nutritional part, the physical portion, movement, taking care of your mental health, taking care of you yourself as a person.
Yeah,
If you find yourself in like a caregiver's role, which is basically what we were just discussing, where you're taking care of others, a lot of times you are opted to take care of yourself last. And if you are so inclined, there are a lot of times that you
yeah,
want to do these things. But if it's like you said,
yeah.
what doesn't get scheduled doesn't get done,
Doesn't
right?
get
So
done.
you're like,
Yeah,
I need to see it in that schedule. I need to see where you have definitely documented that this is what you're going to do. This is how it's going to help and how you're going to support yourself to be the best version
100%.
of yourself overall. And when you do that, then you're taking care of not just your body, but you're taking care of your mind and your spirit. And that overall is where you get this optimal health
Yes.
from. Love it, love it. Alrighty, so now talking about that mind, spirit, and body, and doing all of this and putting yourself last. A lot of things that has happened for a lot of us is going through burnouts. And even when you feel like, oh no, I'm good, and you start looking in the back and you're like, retrospectively, you're like, you know what, I probably did burn out. But for you, did you ever experience burnout? If so, what did it look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, like a lot of people, after COVID, I
Mhm.
did have feelings of burnout. I
Mhm.
actually um, was working from home, but
Mhm.
it definitely blurred the lines of work and home, and was
Mhm.
working around the clock. And,
Yeah.
my kids would just see me on my computer all the time, and, up until midnight, starting early in the morning. And it just got into an unhealthy pattern, and I
Yeah.
realized that I was physically attached to my computer at all times, and that's
Mhm.
not healthy. And I would
Right.
have this brain fog and fatigue, And I had this guilt of not being in the hospital, right? Because my colleagues were on the front lines of fighting
Mm-hmm.
COVID. And here I was at home. So I felt like I had to compensate for that and just do all this work at home. And I was actually taking care of patients that, for a company that cared for people that worked for Amazon and Costco. And they were considered frontline workers in some ways, and helping them navigate COVID. And so I felt obligated to just help them and, work through their problems, and because they were too scared to go in person. But looking back, I probably should have had some more clear boundaries for myself and my home life. But that was the time that I would say that I did have that sensation of burnout. I think that whenever I put work first, it's always a risk, right? So we're always, and I feel like we're always trying to find balance. I don't think I'll ever say that I've found balance. I think I'm always striving to get the balance. And as long as we can call ourselves out and say, hey, we're overworked, we're not feeling great, we have signs of burnout, like just, being more pessimistic, having more brain fog, wanting to take more naps, things like that, like pick up on what your unique signs are. I think that's really important to be in tune with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's this role where we are the hero, and we feel like we have to push ourselves to the limit to be able to save everyone. A lot of times that gets us to that point of burnout too, where you're given, but you also may block the receiving portion of things because you're like, no, the other person needs it more than I do. That other person needs it more than I do. But we also have to recognize that we ourselves need whatever that we're craving for, that sometimes we block. So yeah, I can definitely see how that will lead to it. Alrighty, well, now that we talked about that, let me talk about my fun question of the day. Alrighty, so now I gotta think about all the things we talked about in this conversation. Alrighty, so if you weren't a doctor and you're not doing anything in lifestyle medicine, you're not doing anything in obesity medicine, you're not a GLP-1 exercise, nutrition person, what would you be?
I would probably opted for, can you hear me? I would be an architect.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I love designing and building and planning. So I think that school of thought really speaks to me. And so I love just the idea of designing, building structures for their functionality, but also for their aesthetics. So that really appeals to me. Yeah.
You're my third architect. I love it.
Oh, really?
Yes. So now that I have more architects, so this question really is for this utopia in my mind where all my doctor friends all have roles and they're doing all these awesome things. So you are building the structure, and then we have interior decorators, and then we have caterers, we have garden florists, like all these stuff. So lovely, lovely, lovely. When we're going to put together this wonderful stage, then I'm going to have you, be able to structurally build that for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, with that in mind, there are a lot of people who want to get to know you, and they want to know, where can they find you? Where is your wonderful office? Monarch Weight Loss and Wellness.
Yep.
Like, how can we get in contact with you? And if they need and want to be able to use your services, how do they do that? So let them know, Dr. Mona.
Yeah, so I see patients in person in Scottsdale, Arizona. I also see patients virtually in Georgia and Pennsylvania. My website is monarchconciergewellness.com, but you can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Mona Sodhi. And through either way, you can book a free 15-minute meet and greet with me, so we can see if we're a good fit to work together.
Love it, love it, love it. So if you're on Instagram, you go, is it at Dr. Mona Sodhi? And if not, then you want to go to the website. Give us the name of that website again.
Yeah, it's monarchconciergewellness.com. I know it's a mouthful.
Monarch, well, it's a mouthful, but it's telling you what they do.
Yeah.
monarchconciergewellness.com. Alrighty, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for those who are listening, who might have just joined on? And on this wonderful topic about weight loss, metabolic health, and all GLPs. Do you have any last words for them?
I would say try not to get too overwhelmed with everything that's
Mhm.
online right now and really focus on the basics. Find someone you trust to help guide you. Those would be the main things, really. It's just keep it
Awesome.
simple and find a really solid guide.
I love it. Like, don't get overwhelmed. There's so much going on. There's so many in, like, in each ways, and everyone's trying to help or
Yeah,
might be trying to hate. Either way,
right.
but just keep it simple and then find someone who you support and who you care and feel like you care about them and you trust them, and use that
Yeah.
person to help to support you on this journey. So with that, we're going to end today's conversation. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dr. Mona Sodhi, for jumping on. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing your kindness and wisdom on this very, very important topic with us. With that, I know here it is. This is what always happens. This is what always happens. We have some people that jumped on at the end and they're like, oh my goodness, I did not catch all of that. And it was so good. And I know I needed to learn more. And I'm like, have no fear. This wonderful conversation is available on our Your Caring Docs website. Just select podcast or the Dr. Tamara Beckford show. And then you will see this wonderful episode. You see Dr. Mona's beautiful face. Just download and you'll be able to capture and listen to this episode. Send it to 5 or 10 of your friends who want to know about this. And as Dr. Mona also has her weight loss business, so do I. So if you are looking for support in getting help in losing weight, then you can also contact me on our website, Truly Balanced Wellness Care. So just go to www.trulybalancedwcom. We are some of the people that are out here to help to support you to lose weight and to also get some great care as you do so. Thank you so much, Dr. Mona. Thank you, everyone
Thanks
who
for
has
having me.
watched and commented. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.